On Wednesday, there was some big news regarding Warriors general manager Bob Myers. Yes, four-time champion built the dynasty Bob Myers. And with multiple reports in the last couple of months having him linked to the Clippers, just how much smoke is there that Bob Myers could be joining the Clippers for next season and beyond? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th, or just finished my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I talk all things NBA, LA sports, NBA history, and of course, LA Clippers. And Locked On Clippers is also a channel you need to subscribe to. You can listen to it on all your favorite podcasting platforms, but you got to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video. And I want you to comment what you would think or what you think of Bob Myers potentially joining the Clippers this summer. Now, you might be wondering, why would Bob Myers be joining? That would mean that Lawrence Frank would be gone or Michael Winger would be gone. Well, I'm going to get into why this conversation is even a thing. Also going to be talking about the coaches that are being linked to the Clippers, or I shouldn't say linked to the Clippers, but coaches out there that could be the next Clipper coach if Ty Lue is lured by one of the teams that he is rumored to be pursued by. We're going to be talking about that at the end, but let's get into why this is even a conversation. So Bob Myers, who's been with the Warriors since, if I'm not mistaken, 2011. I think he became the real GM towards the end of the 2012 season. But I know he had a hand in picking Clay, Draymond. Obviously, he was the GM by the time they hired Steve Kerr, got Andre Iguodala. I'm pretty sure David Lee as well. So he made all these big moves. He built the dynasty. He got Kevin Durant, got everybody to agree to pay cuts, built the Warriors that we know in this era. So he, Joe Lacob and Peter Guber are the owners. Bob Myers, the GM, and then you got Kerr and the machine that all begins with number 30, Stephen Curry. But Bob Myers, there's no doubt that he is one of the best in the game. He played at UCLA as an actual basketball player and won a championship. So he clearly knows a thing or two about ball. And you can see it with the team that he's built. Now, of course, GMs have to have amazing players, legendary players, to build dynasties. For Jerry Krause, it was MJ. For Mitch Kupchak, it was Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. And for Bob Myers, it's, what's his name? Steph Curry. By the way, Jerry West also, I want to say, I don't want to leave him out of it with the Lakers. But speaking of which, Jerry West with the Clippers, that brings me to the news about Bob Myers today, and that's that Shams reported. We already knew that his contract was expiring. And there were talks earlier in the season with, the two timeline thing with Golden State where they had a bunch of young players and they also had the experience guard and they couldn't really make that work. They traded James Wiseman, who was their second pick. And it seemed like the players or Steve Kerr, one of the two, also had kind of a different view of how things should be going with Bob Myers. Bob Myers, I think, wanted more Kuminga. He believes in Moody, Wiseman, these guys, but eventually, he made some trades. Now, it sounds like they're not going to renew his contract. That was the report on Wednesday that Shams said that it's very likely that the Warriors do not offer him a new contract. If that's the case, there is no doubt in my mind that the Clippers are going to go for him. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. And the reason that is because, one, Steve Ballmer's willing to do whatever it takes. And I'm not sure about the whole CBA rules and how that affects GMs. But as far as I know, Steve Ballmer can offer him a hefty contract. And Steve Ballmer will not be afraid to do so. Now, you might be wondering, that would mean that there's a change in the Clippers' current front office. Well, that's when it seemed a little bit closer to reality that maybe Bob Myers is coming to the door when we heard Woj tweet that Michael Winger is going to take an interview with the Washington Wizards on a potential president of basketball operations kind of job. So you might be wondering, what's the difference between a GM and a president of basketball operations? Quite frankly, when I first started watching basketball in the mid-2000s, the general manager was the guy that made all the basketball decisions. Elgin Baylor was ours. Mitch Kupchak for the Lakers. Steve Kerr for a while with the Phoenix Suns. So then, I don't know, all of a sudden it became president of basketball operations is basically that same person that we used to know as GM. And the GM, honestly, let me even look up what the GM does these days, because I want to see what it's defined as in the NBA now. So Elton Brand, for example, is the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers. Mitch Kupchak for the Charlotte Hornets. For the Clippers, it's Michael Winger. The GM of a team typically controls player transactions and bears the primary responsibility on behalf of the team during contract negotiations with players. So that's, I guess, the traditional definition. That doesn't really tell me anything. So let's be clear. If Michael Winger goes to Washington, takes that job to make the basketball decisions, then, and by the way, I would probably take a job where you're probably getting paid more and actually are in charge of making the basketball decisions, as opposed to being second in command of Lawrence Frank and doing whatever he does. I don't know what he really does. So I think he's going to take the job. If they offer it to him and they offer him the biggest deal over any other guy that they're interviewing, then if he's option number one, I think Winger will take the job. And that will mean that if Bob Myers is still down to be a GM, he could be the Clippers GM. But the thing is, who makes the decisions? Lawrence Frank, Bob Myers, Jerry West? Well, that depends. Going to be talking about that coming up. But before I do that, I got to tell you about eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit. Or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, so what would have to happen for Bob Myers to come through the door? Now, do you think Bob Myers is going to take a GM job where he's under Lawrence Frank and Lawrence Frank is still making the basketball decisions? Absolutely not, in my opinion. Now, what I think is likely is, and by the way, I heard that Jerry West, from two people, that Jerry West was talking to Bob Myers, seen talking to him, and there's a good chance that Jerry West can lure this guy. Now, the question is, who makes the basketball decisions, Bob Myers or Lawrence Frank? Steve Ballmer and Jerry West are going to want Bob Myers, given his track record, to make the decisions. Lawrence Frank would then have to be demoted to general manager. Is he going to accept that? I don't know. But here's the thing. With the presumed rift that has been confirmed by multiple people, with roster construction or the idea of the roster, with Lawrence Frank and Ty Lue throughout the season, him being more wing heavy, Terrence at the point, Ty Lue being more guard heavy. Russell Westbrook came in, wanted a point guard. Lawrence Frank didn't want that. I said all season long at the end when I heard about all these things that one of them is going to be out the door most likely. And if Bob Myers is coming through the door, Lawrence Frank will be gone probably. If Lawrence Frank's not down to take the GM role and not make basketball decisions anymore, Ty Lue will be staying put and probably extended. And there's been talks recently about Ty Lue being pursued by these other teams, Phoenix, Milwaukee. But as far as we know, no big time reports, but as far as we know, Ty Lue is under contract and he might be offered an extension by the Clippers. So let me know what you think of that. But there's no real smoke about Ty Lue getting fired or leaving, but you never know. He could leave. He could leave if he likes one of these offers. Howard Beck, who we had on Locked on Clippers a couple weeks ago, he said that Ty Lue may leave because he's potentially frustrated at the lack of availability from the Stars and how hard that's making his job. Now, I don't blame him. He was visibly frustrated at times this season. I think part of it was just more than just the lack of availability of the Stars. But that being said, if he leaves, then you have other coaches. But I'm gonna save that for the end. But the point is, if Bob Myers comes in, Lawrence Frank, there's very minimal chance that he will be making basketball decisions, the main ones, any longer. He might be consulted, but Bob Myers will have the reins. He's not coming in to take a lower job or a lesser role after what he just accomplished. And it's kind of a slap in the face to him. They're not offering him a new contract. Now, obviously, I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes with the Warriors. I know very little, actually. So who knows what's going on? Eventually, things just come to an end sometimes. But Bob Myers beginning would be great for the Clippers. I would love to have him on board. I mean, he has a better track record than Lawrence Frank building teams. And that's no disrespect to Lawrence. I just did an episode on him. I think he's done a fine job. But he doesn't have the rings of Bob Myers. Now, he didn't have Steph Curry, of course. That stability of Golden State. But Bob Myers just having his lens in there, maybe he will try to get a coach that's more movement-based, or maybe he will just get the players that Ty Lue wants. I don't know. Sometimes just having a fresh voice in there is good. And I truly believe that if Bob Myers comes through the door with the Clippers, and I really don't think the Warriors are going to offer him a new contract. If he does, and Michael Winger's out the door, expect him to come through it and take the basketball decisions. I don't know if he's going to be considered the GM or the president, but whatever it is, I think he'll be making them. Now, if he comes through the door, as I said, I think that Lawrence Frank will be out the door and Ty Lue stays. I really think that's what has to happen, and that's what's probably going to happen. But all that needs to happen for Bob Myers is that he doesn't get extended by the Warriors and Michael Winger takes another job or Frank gets fired. That's what needs to happen. So let me know what you think if you want Bob Myers. But coming up, going to be looking at if they go against the grain with Ty Lue going out the door, he walks away. Who are the coaches that are on the carousel that the Clippers could pick up? Going to be talking about that coming up. All right, so to talk now about the coaches that are potentially available if the Clippers, let's say one option is they fire Ty Lue. Very, very unlikely, in my opinion, that Steve Ballmer fires him. Second option, he walks away. Could happen. You never know. Then the third option, Bob Myers comes to the door and he doesn't want Ty Lue, that's very unlikely, in my opinion. The most likely of those three to me is that Ty Lue walks away because he's frustrated with the situation and he would rather have a different team where he's going to get maybe a very solid offer. Not maybe. He's going to get a very solid offer. If it's more than what he's getting with the Clippers, I am not sure. The Clippers might make an extension offer, but I don't know. I think the whole GM thing might be more appealing to them to deal with first, with Ty Lue already on contract and Myers expiring in July. But let's look at the coaches that they could look at if Ty Lue walks away. Now, there are two of them with a championship on the market that just got fired. One of them, Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer has taken over average teams and taken them to another level. Atlanta in 2014 and 15 got them to 60 wins and a conference finals berth, the first in their time in Atlanta. And then you had the Milwaukee Bucks, who were the 7th seed the year before Mike Budenholzer comes in. They get Brook Lopez and Mike Budenholzer. They get Brook to stretch the floor, and Mike Budenholzer takes them to a 1 seed, and they go on their eventual run. Now, I know a lot of Bucks fans wanted Mike Budenholzer out after the bubble, and it was surprising to me that he lasted in 2021, and a lot of people said they won the championship in spite of Bud. Look, I don't think Bud is insane. I don't think that Bud coached the best with Milwaukee, but he absolutely is a champion and is only one of 2 championship coaches for the Milwaukee Bucks besides him and Larry Costello. He absolutely deserves some credit. And look, Ty Lue only has 1 ring. Frank Vogel only has 1 ring. Like, who's to say one of them is way better than the other? They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Now, the thing is, I don't really know Mike Budenholzer's weaknesses. I don't he doesn't coach my team, and I don't watch every Bucks game. His offense is definitely not very creative. I can tell that by watching it. His offense is not that creative. I think he chooses certain players, but every coach seems to pick their own favorites based on what they like. Everybody has a lens. So that's minor, but Mike Budenholzer, I don't know. Is he an upgrade over Ty Lue? That's one reason why the Clippers may not fire him or go a different direction. Because even if Lawrence Frank, let's say we don't get Bob Myers, even if Lawrence Frank doesn't want to work with Ty Lue again, is Mike Budenholzer really more appealing? I probably don't really think so. How about Nick Nurse? A guy that's coached Kawhi and Norman Powell, so there's a little bit more appeal there. He's defense first, leaned into big wing lineups with Toronto with guys like Siakam, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Christian Coloco, who's a big, but he's a mobile big, Boucher. So you could see Nick Nurse be kind of an attractive candidate. Let me know what you think. But his offense is also pretty ugly. Is it more enticing than Ty Lue? Now, with the history with Kawhi, you'd like to think maybe it is more enticing than Ty Lue. But he also has a tendency of running his players kind of into the ground. But that being said, he didn't really have much depth the last couple of years in Toronto. So I don't even know how valid that point really is. We have a lot of depth here. And probably on the next episode of Locked On Clippers, we're going to be talking about, were the Clippers really the deepest team in the league this season? I'm going to talk about that in depth. But overall, those are two coaches you can look at. They each have one championship, just like Ty Lue. If, in my opinion, Nick Nurse is the most appealing there. And then you can go for a newer coach, like an assistant that's been waiting in the wings, like a Sam Cassell. I would love if Sam came back and became the coach of the Clippers. I think he deserves a shot. The only thing is he's part of the Glenn Rivers coaching tree, which I don't love. Glenn Rivers just got fired. How about bringing him back? Just kidding. No chance. But besides that, I mean, is Dan Craig or Kenny Atkinson down to take a head coaching job? You have to look and are those guys better than Ty Lue? I don't really think so. The only one I think would be decent would be Nick Nurse. But it's going to be really interesting to see if the Clippers can get Bob Myers. So in retrospect, in hindsight, whatever you want to say, to recap, Bob Myers is probably not getting extended according to Charania of The Athletic. I don't think he's going to be extended. We've heard these rumors for months now, and the rumors are the Clippers are going to look to get him. Now, I think the Clippers may just land him. If he does go, I think they will, especially if Winger takes the Wizards job. And if Winger takes the Wizards job, Lawrence Frank is being demoted in some way, shape, or form, in my opinion. Bob Myers will now be taking basketball decisions, and that would be a win for the Clippers. What that does for the coaching, I do not know. We'll just have to wait and see. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more content on the NBA. And, of course, subscribe to Locked On Clippers and answer some of the questions I asked you. I know there were a lot. Answer some of them. Let me know what you think of Bob Myers potentially being the next GM or president of basketball operations, whatever it is, for the LA Clippers. And which one of those coaches sounds more appealing than Ty Lue to you? It sounds very weird, but whatever. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.